Hello, good evening, and welcome. This is Science Fiction Snob, and today on Worth Watching, we're going to talk about Altered Carbon, a 10-episode show on Netflix. Is it worth watching? Yes, it is. It's good. So, Altered Carbon is set in a dystopian cyberpunk future about 500 years from where we are now. In it, we have we've discovered through alien technology a way to insert our conscience, to record our consciousness, and these are kept in little discs. They're inserted between your just below your head into your spinal column, and from there you can put your consciousness can be saved on that disk. All your memories, personality, everything's recorded there, and that disk can be taken out and transferred into other bodies. So these disks are called your stack, and bodies are called sleeves. So with this technology, you can essentially live forever if you can afford it. So people, the very rich, some of the very rich, they can afford very expensive. They can afford to clone themselves, and they stay in the same body. But others, if you can afford to buy a new sleeve after your old one wears out, and younger sleeves, better shaped sleeves are going to cost more money. You can transfer yourself to another sleeve and continue to live in that way. So in this scenario, there are a couple of things which prevent that. First of all, the expense, but also there's a small religious group that opposes this and feels that it's against God's will. So they don't want to be have their personality recorded. However, it's the law that everyone has to have their personality recorded starting at age 1. And also this story it's a crime story, so it revolves a lot around the criminal system. So there's a thing where if you're accused of a crime and found guilty, then you're basically kept on ice. Your stack is taken out and it's kept in for your sentence, which may be 100 years, whatever it is. 10 years, 100 years, a couple months, whatever it is, and then you may or may not be put back in your own body. It depends on if your sleeve is still available. You might get put in another sleeve. So the point of the whole story, it revolves around this character called Kovacs, and he's been put down for about 250 years. He's been in where he hasn't been back in his body, and that's because he is a convicted terrorist. So he used to work for the protectorate government. He fought. He betrayed them, and he went to work with this small group that called themselves envoys, and they were fighting very much a behind the lines terrorist type war against the protectorate, because they were against what the protectorate was doing and the way that the system was set up. And mainly they seem to have they're concerned about the large corporations that have been growing up in the settled worlds over this technology and how powerful they become. And that is demonstrated very well within the story throughout the 10 episodes, where the rich have become so rich that they can do almost anything they want, and they've lost their humanity. So that is one of the themes throughout the series, about the loss of humanity when you can effectively live forever. So the story, as I said, revolves around Kovacs, who's been is a terrorist, but he's brought back by this one of the super rich to solve his murder. So this guy's been was murdered in his house, and everything about it points to a suicide, and the police have basically said it was a suicide. and they've closed the case. But this guy is so arrogant that he believes that he would never kill himself. And he's one of the ultra rich. He's like a Bill Gates. Has lived for like 360 years or something like that. Lives in a castle in the clouds. He is one of the ultra rich. So he's able to pay to have this basic terrorist taken out of jail for a short period of time. He can set it up so that the guy will get pardoned for all his crimes, put him in a new sleeve, everything like that. So the story revolves around Kovacs and his trying to solve this mystery. So I'm not want to tell you any more. I don't want to give anything else away, but it's an excellent story. There's enough twists and turns. I personally am not a big fan of detective or mystery stories, but it works. This is a great story. There's conspiracy, there's police corruption, there's people with differing motives, lots of action, lots of different motives from criminal characters and other characters in there. So it's a great show. Highly recommend it. Now, it's based on a book by Richard Morgan, if I got this name right. And there is, and I haven't finished, I saw the series first. I haven't finished reading the first book, but there are at least 2 other books in this series, and possibly another one. I haven't looked into it yet. So there are, the book is well written, and the first season is based on that first book. So they have at least 2 seasons worth of good material to work on, assuming that Morgan's later books are as good as his first. And I see no reason why they shouldn't be. And I do know that they take place, the next books take place with the same character, not necessarily within the same time. And there's open, after the end of the series, there's an open conflict for Kovacs to go after. So let's talk a little bit about some of the actors. Mostly no-name actors involved in, at least from me, that I haven't seen. So Joel Kinnaman plays Kovacs for most of the time, because of course this is not his original sleeve, so he's not actually the person, but he plays him. He does a great job. I think that he's perfect for that job, and I'm kind of I don't know for sure or not, but if I don't get to see him playing in, I'll be disappointed if I don't get to see him in season 2 and 3, but I kind of doubt that I will. The woman who plays Detective Ortega, who's the one who originally investigated the suicide, I haven't seen her much. She's great in the position. Tough but sexy. You can believe the character. The Mrs. Bancroft is the name of the guy who's the ultra rich guy. His wife is Christian Lehman. She plays it. She's supposed to play imagine playing a old woman, 300 years old, but yet in a young body, and she's able to. They have to skirt the line a little bit. So she's probably the actress is probably a little older than this woman would have had her body. Assume she looks about 30, but she probably would have had a body of a 20-year-old. But you couldn't find an actress to play a 20-year-old with the right sort of look in her eyes that would make that she's really old. So she looks young enough, but her eyes say that she's old, and does an excellent job at doing that. And the last one is the woman who plays Kovacs' sister, Ray. She's been in, I don't remember her name, but she's the only one that I noticed. I think I've seen her before, and I looked her up, and I've seen her in that old Joss Whedon show Dollhouse. She played in that character, and she does an excellent job. The tough sister who was also an envoy, like Kovacs. So some great actors, even though most of them are not very well known. Excellent. They do an excellent job. So on that, I just have to say, totally recommend seeing this show. 10 episodes on Netflix. I'm hoping that they're going to do a second and third season, and if so, I'm counting the days to see that and to see where the writer takes us next. And I won't be able to wait that long. I'm going to finish the first book, which Altered Carbon, it's same name, and I'll be looking for the second book after that, which I think is called Broken Angels. But I'll be definitely reading those while I wait for the next seasons to start. So, tell me what you think about the show if you've seen it. Tell me what you think of the channel. Let us know in the comments. Snob out.